Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain was falling heavily on Washington, D.C., turning the sidewalks into dark mirrors. On the corner of a busy street, Alyssa Cartera, a 22-year-old black woman, was waiting for a taxi after leaving a university conference on civil rights. Elegant in her navy blue suit, she held a briefcase containing important documents for her mother, General Helena Carter, the first black woman to have reached the rank of four-star general in the U.S. Army. But what no one around her knew was that Alyssa was the only child of this legendary woman. Her mother, always away on missions or traveling, had chosen to give her as normal a life as possible. So Alyssa lived discreetly, far from the spotlight. Suddenly, a police car pulled up abruptly next to her. Two officers got out, Officer Bradley and Sergeant Miller, two men visibly irritated by the rainy day. "Hey, you," Bradley creates, "what are you doing hanging around here? We received a report of an armed robbery, and you fit the description." Alyssa froze, surprised. "Excuse me? I just came from the conference at the university, look at my student ID." But before she had time to finish, Miller snatched the card from her hands. Yeah, that's what they all say. You got a briefcase? Let's see what's inside." "It is the property of the Department of Defense," Alyssa replied in a firm voice. "That I can't let you open it." The two police officers burst out laughing. "The Department of Defense? Seriously?" Bradley launches, "And you work for them, maybe?" Alyssa sighed, then said calmly, "No, but my mother does. My mother is General Helena Carter." A 2-second silence, before they burst out laughing. "Your mother? A 4-star general?" said Miller between two snickers. "That's right, and my father is the President of the United States." Alyssa tried to remain calm. "I'm telling you the truth. Please let me make a call." But the officers, believing it to be a provocation, brutally slammed her against the car. In the pouring rain, her papers fell to the ground. A crowd began to gather, some filming the scene with their phones. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice," Bradley creates. It was then that a black SUV slowly approached the scene. Two uniformed soldiers got out. One of them, with a hard look, walked towards the police officers. "Back away immediately," he said in an icy voice, "you have just made a serious mistake." Bradley frowned. "And who are you?" The soldier stood up and showed his military dog tag. "Captain Reynolds, Chief of General Carter's personal security." The two policemen turned pale. And before they could even react, the rear door of the SUV opened. A woman in uniform stepped out, her gaze steely, the stars shining on her collar. General Helena Carter. She walked straight towards the police officers, her face expressionless, fury in her eyes. "You dared to mistreat my daughter, in the rain, without any valid reason?" The two officers stammered, unable to find their words. "Madam General, we didn't know." Helena approached until she was only a few centimeters away from them. "That's right, you didn't know. You didn't bother to check. And it's exactly this kind of behavior that I fight against every day." A heavy silence fell. The cameras of passers-by continued to film. Helena then turned to her daughter, gently took her by the shoulder and said, "Come, Alyssa. Let them learn the lesson they deserve." Then, turning back to the officers, she added in an icy voice, "You will receive your suspension orders before the end of the day." The police officers, paralyzed with fear, watched the car drive away, the flashing lights reflecting off the rain. That day, they had laughed at a black girl. But they had just humiliated the daughter of the most powerful woman in the American military. The next morning, Washington, D.C. awoke to an unprecedented media frenzy. Videos of the previous day's scene, showing two police officers manhandling a young black woman in the rain, had flooded social media overnight. But what no one had anticipated was their revelation was about to follow. This young woman was none other than General Helena Carter's daughter, the highest-ranking officer in the U.S. military. In her suite at the Pentagon, General Carter stood before the bay window, observing the still hazy Capitol. She wore her impeccably pressed uniform, but a cold anger shone in her eyes. Several newspapers were displayed on the table, with headlines in capital letters. 2 police officers suspended after arresting General Carter's daughter. Racism and abuse of power, the general's daughter humiliates the D.C. police. When military power clashes with social injustice. His assistant, Captain Reynolds, entered discreetly. Madam General, the President has requested an immediate report on the incident. And, the press is demanding an official statement. Helena took a deep breath. Not yet. First and foremost, I want to see my daughter. At home, Alyssa hadn't slept a wink all night. His phone was constantly vibrating. Journalists, friends, strangers, everyone wanted to talk to him. She reread for the 100th time the message her mother had sent her. Don't say anything to the press. I'll take care of it. But Alyssa felt conflicted. Yes, she was relieved that the truth had come out. But deep down, she knew that this affair went far beyond her own humiliation. She remembered the contemptuous looks from the police officers, the laughter, the hurtful words. She knew that thousands of others were experiencing the same thing without cameras, without a general to defend them. When the doorbell rang, she expected to see a journalist. But when she opened the door, she came face to face with her mother, still as imposing as ever in her uniform. Mom, she breathed. Helena took her in her arms, for the first time in months. I'm sorry, my daughter. You didn't deserve this. They sat down, and Helena took out a file. The police department wants to issue a formal apology tonight. But I don't want a show. What I want is change. Alyssa looked her in the eyes. So let me speak. Not as General Carter's daughter, but as a black woman humiliated for who she is. Helena hesitated. Then, slowly, she nodded her head. Very well. But know that if you step onto that podium, the whole country will listen to you. And they will judge you. Alyssa smiled faintly. This is the risk we have to take so that other girls don't have to go through this anymore. That same evening, a press conference was held at the headquarters of the Metropolitan Police. Dozens of cameras, journalists from all over the world. The 2 police officers involved, Bradley and Miller, were there, heads bowed, suspended from their duties. When Alyssa Carter spoke, there was silence. She wore a simple black dress, without makeup, her eyes tired but determined. Her voice trembled slightly at first, then gained strength. Last night, I was stopped, insulted, and humiliated because I don't look like a general's daughter. Because in their minds, a well-dressed black girl in an upscale neighborhood must be suspicious. This isn't just my story. It's the story of thousands of Americans who face prejudice and abuse of power every day. A murmur rippled through the room. Alyssa continues. My mother taught me to fight with dignity. And today, I don't ask for revenge, but for justice and reform. Not just for myself, but for all those whose voices are ignored. The cameras flashed. Helena, standing back, felt a pride that no medal could equal. But while applause erupted in the hall, in a dark office at police headquarters, a man watched the scene on television, his jaw clenched. It was the chief of police, Commissioner Douglas Reeves. And he murmured coldly. They want to bring me down over 2 idiots? Very well, General Carter, the fight has only just begun. The sun had barely risen over Washington, D.C., but in the corridors of the Metropolitan Police headquarters the atmosphere was already heavy. The words of Alyssa Carter's speech were still echoing across news channels, and social media was ablaze. Hundreds of thousands of messages of support flooded in under the hashtag Justice for Alyssa. But for Commissioner Douglas Reeves this was not just a media scandal. It was a direct threat to his authority. Seated behind his large oak desk, Reeves stared at the screens in front of him. One showed Alyssa at the podium. The other showed protesters holding up signs. Enough of institutional racism. The general's daughter speaks for all of us. He stubbed out his cigarette in the ashtray, then turned to his deputy, Captain Monroe. "Do you see what she did?" Reeves grumbled that in one night, she transformed the entire police force into a symbol of hate. And all because one of my men had a bad reflex. Monroe remained silent. "And what about General Carter?" he asked cautiously. "She is highly respected, especially in La Défense. Don't you think it would be better to calm things down?" Reeves gave a bitter smile. "Calm things down? No, Monroe. If I back down, I'm finished. They want my head? Then I'll show them that nobody brings Douglas Reeves down." He pressed an intercom button. "Bring in Officer Bradley." Immediately. A few minutes later, Bradley entered, his face marked by shame and fatigue. "Commissioner. I am sorry for what happened. I acted too hastily." Reeves stood up slowly, staring straight into his eyes. "Do you want to save your own skin?" "Yes, sir." "So listen to me carefully. You're going to tell the media that this girl provoked you, that she resisted arrest, that she threatened you with something from her briefcase. We'll circulate this version. I already have a contact at the Washington Tribune ready to publish an exclusive investigation." Bradley turned pale. "But, that's wrong, sir. Everyone saw the video." "The video doesn't show everything," Reeves cut him off coldly. "People see what we want them to see. And I want them to doubt her. Understand?" The officer hesitated, then finally agreed, terrified. "Yes, sir." Reeves placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Perfect. You'll redeem yourself, son. And I'll put the Carter family in their place." Meanwhile, at the Pentagon, tensions were also rising. General Helena Carter had just received a call from the Secretary of Defense. "Helena, the White House wants to avoid a direct confrontation between the Army and the police," said the voice on the phone. "You understand what's at stake. This matter is becoming political." Helena clenched her jaw. "With all due respect, Mr. Secretary, this is not a political matter. It is a matter of justice. And I will not allow this commissioner to smear my daughter to save his own reputation." She hung up, her gaze dark. At that moment, Alyssa entered, carrying a file under her arm. "Mom, look at this," she said, placing several sheets of paper on the table. "They're already trying to make me out to be a liar. Some websites are talking about an arrogant girl who allegedly insulted the police." Helena scanned the headlines, her face hardening with each line. "They launched a media counterattack." Alyssa sighed. "I expected it. But this time, I don't just want to talk. I want to act." Helena looked at her, intrigued. "How should we act?" "By launching a movement. I have friends who are journalists, lawyers, and students. We can create a national campaign against abuses of power. Not just a simple demonstration. A structured project, supported by evidence, testimonies, and respected voices." A slight smile appeared on Helena's lips. "You remind me of your father when you talk like that." Alyssa smiled in turn. "You always say that we shouldn't just denounce, but build." Meanwhile, Reeves was watching a televised debate program. A journalist had just stated. According to internal sources, Alyssa Carter allegedly made threats against police officers before her arrest. He turned off the television, satisfied. "And now, General Carter," he murmured, "let's see how long you will remain a heroine when the country doubts your daughter." But in the shadows, someone else was listening to this silent war. Captain Monroe, who, for the first time, began to doubt his leader. And he said to himself secretly, "This time, Reeves goes too far." 3 days had passed since the press conference. The streets of Washington were still rocked by protests. Signs demanded justice for Alyssa Carter, while others, influenced by rumors spread by Commissioner Reeves, were beginning to have doubts. The debates raged on in the morning talk shows. Was this a case of racism, or media exaggeration? Did the general's daughter take advantage of her position to humiliate the police? Alyssa, for her part, watched the chaos from her apartment window. She felt trapped. She had done nothing wrong, and yet her public image was tarnished. His phone vibrated. It was an unknown message. If you want to know who is tarnishing your name, come alone to the parking lot of the 4th District, level -2, at 10 p.m. That evening, the city seemed strangely calm. Alyssa, nervous, put on a cap and a dark coat. Despite her fear, she knew she had to go. When she entered the deserted underground parking lot, only the flickering neon lights guided her steps. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Captain Monroe. "Miss Carter, thank you for coming. Did you write to me? Who are you?" "I am Commissioner Reeves' right-hand man, or at least, I used to be." Alyssa froze. "Why do you want to see me?" Monroe looked around, then spoke in a low voice. "Reeves is manipulating the press. He ordered Officer Bradley to lie, to say that you threatened the police. They are fabricating evidence to support this version." Alyssa's eyes widened. "Are you sure about what you're saying?" "I saw the documents myself. Doctored photos, fake intervention reports. He wants to discredit you and force your mother to leave the army under the pretext of a conflict of interest. He took a USB key out of his pocket and handed it to her. It's all in there. The emails, the internal orders, the exchanges between Reeves and certain journalists. But be careful. If you use it, he'll come for you." Alyssa took the key, trembling. "Why help me?" Monroe lowered his eyes. "Because I've seen too much injustice. And just yesterday, I saw Reeves laughing and saying he was going to run over the general's daughter." He looked her straight in the eyes. "Do what you must do, Miss Carter. But hurry before he destroys everything." Before she could reply, he walked away into the night, leaving Alyssa alone, the key clutched in her hand. The next day, at the Pentagon, Helena Carter listened to the news, furious. Newspapers claimed that his daughter had aggressive behavior, citing internal police sources. Alyssa entered suddenly, her face determined. "Mom, you have to see this." She inserted the USB drive into the computer. Dozens of files appeared on the screen. Emails from Reeves ordering the falsification of evidence. Money transfers to a Washington Tribune journalist. Internal videos from the police station where Reeves threatened his subordinates. Helena remained frozen, her breath short. "My God," she murmured, "it's an organized conspiracy." Alyssa clenched her fists. "He wanted my head. Now it's his turn to fall." Helena placed a hand on his shoulder. "We cannot act alone. If we want to defeat it, we must do it properly. Legally. And publicly." That same evening, Helena contacted an old friend, Senator Richard Coleman, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. When he saw the evidence, he turned pale. "Helena, this is explosive. If we publish this, it's no longer just a police scandal, it's a matter of state." "So be it," Helena replied firmly. "I will no longer remain silent." Coleman nodded. "Very well. We will summon Reeves before the committee tomorrow morning. And this time, the whole country will listen to him." Meanwhile, in his office, Reeves stared at the television screen. A breaking news alert had just been issued. The Senate summons Commissioner Douglas Reeves to explain allegations of falsification and abuse of authority. He jumped up, banging his fist on the table. Who dared to reveal this? His phone rang. It was an unknown number. When he picked up the phone, a cold female voice answered. "This is Alyssa Carter. You tried to tarnish my name. Tomorrow, the truth will tarnish yours." Then the line cut out abruptly. Reeves remained motionless, his gaze vacant, before whispering. "Very well, little one. If it's war you want, you'll get it." The following morning, Washington vibrated with an unusual tension. News channels were broadcasting live the special session of the Senate Justice Committee, summoned to hear the Commissioner Douglas Reeves accused of abuse of power, institutional racism and falsification of evidence. On the steps of the Capitol, a huge crowd had gathered. Veterans, students, families, civil rights associations. They were all holding up signs. Justice for Alyssa Carter. Zero tolerance for lies. Inside the Great Hall of the Senate, the atmosphere was icy. On one side, Reeves, in a dark suit, his jaw clenched. His lawyers surrounded him, but his gaze remained fixed on the door. On the other side, General Helena Carter, upright in her uniform, her face like marble. Beside him was Alyssa, simply dressed, but whose presence commanded silence. When the chairman of the committee, Senator Coleman, struck his gavel, the session began. "Commissioner Reeves," he said in a solemn voice, "you are accused of ordering the falsification of police reports and launching a smear campaign against the Carter family. What is your response to these accusations?" Reeves forced a smile. "Senator, this is all absurd. These accusations come from a young woman seeking media attention. I was simply doing my duty." A murmur rippled through the room. Coleman nodded slowly. "In that case, you will see no problem with us examining some evidence." He signaled to a technician. The giant screen behind him lit up. Then a video recording appeared, secretly filmed in Reeves' office. The commissioner's voice rang out, clear and unmistakable. "You're going to tell the media that this girl resisted, that she threatened the officers. I want them to doubt her. I want them all to doubt her." A leaden silence fell. Then exclamations erupted in the room. The journalists jumped to their feet, the cameras turning towards Reeves, who was pale. "It's a fake," he yelled, "this is manipulation." But Coleman remains impassive. "We've checked the metadata. The recording came from your own internal security system. You ordered a state-sponsored lie." Reeves tried to speak, but Helena stood up slowly. "Senator, allow me." Coleman nodded. General Carter stepped forward, his firm voice echoing through the room. "Mr. Reeves, you have belittled my daughter, tarnished her name, and tried to manipulate the truth. But today, the country is watching you. Tell them, here and now, why you did this. Because she is black? Because she is the daughter of a powerful woman? Or simply because you thought she didn't matter?" Reeves remained silent, sweat beading on his forehead. Helena then turned her eyes towards the Senate. "This is not just my fight, it is the fight of all families who have suffered the weight of injustice, brutality, and contempt. This country deserves better than corrupt leaders and arrogant commissioners." Alyssa stood up in turn. Her voice, soft but firm, silenced the room. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted to be heard. I wanted people to understand that respect depends neither on color nor rank. Today, I stand here not as General Carter's daughter, but as an American citizen simply asking for the truth." A thunderous round of applause erupted in the hall. Some senators stood up, visibly moved. Coleman struck with his hammer. "The hearing is adjourned. The case will be forwarded to the federal prosecutor for charges against Commissioner Reeves." As they left the Senate, journalists rushed around Alyssa and Helena. The cameras, the microphones, the flashes, but this time, it wasn't to humiliate him. It was to celebrate his courage. "A reporter is suing. Miss Carter, how do you feel after this victory?" Alyssa smiled gently. "This is not a victory. It is a beginning. Because as long as a single innocent person is treated as guilty, our fight will not be over." Helena placed a proud hand on her daughter's shoulder. "And I will be by his side in every battle." A few weeks later, Reeves was dismissed from his position and charged with corruption, falsification of evidence and obstruction of justice. The movement launched by Alyssa, Voices for Justice, became a national symbol. Reforms were passed to regulate the use of force, impose transparency in reports and strengthen the ethical training of officers. In a room full of students, Alyssa delivered a speech that became famous. "Justice has no uniform, no rank, no color. It begins where someone dares to say no to fear." Helena, sitting in the front row, looked at her, her eyes moist. And for the first time in years, she felt that her fight, their fight, was finally bearing fruit.